Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission to order. I'm going to read the rules to speak. Anybody requesting to speak to address the commission for items that are not on the agenda, please fill out the request to speak form located on the table by the elevators out back, and give the administrative assistant in attendance at the meeting prior to speaking. Customers wishing to address the commission regarding a specific agenda item other than the rate hearing will be given an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Each customer will be given 3 minutes to address the commission. We're here to listen. Any follow-up or feedback will be done by email, or anything that cannot be resolved this evening, we'll be in touch with you. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item number 3, approved consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are listed with an asterisk, are on the consent agenda and considered to be routine or non-controversial. Anybody want to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay.
Make motion to approve consent agenda.
A motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Customers to be heard. I have a request to speak form from Mr. Ken Norman.
Madam Chair, a few members of the commission that are here, Councilman Hendrickson, Bill. My name is Ken Norman. I live at 2406 North River Drive in Moorhead. I spent almost 30 years sitting where the chairman is sitting today, hopefully serving this community on this particular commission. Some of you may have noticed articles in the newspaper lately indicating that all sorts of things were happening here at Moorhead Public Service. I'm not here to argue about all of those things, but I am here to caution people as they move forward, as they try to make sense out of what has happened and what is happening at Moorhead Public Service and within the city of Moorhead. Number one, and it's unfortunate that I don't see more people here from that have been appointed, but number one, I think it's absolutely imperative that whoever is named to this commission take the time to acquaint themselves with chapters 11 and 12 of the Moorhead City Charter. It's not difficult to read. I read it, and if I can understand it, just about anybody can. It's what we call the lowest common denominator. From that standpoint, it's important that everybody understand that this is, in fact, a separately set-aside body that was established for a very particular purpose, dating back to the days in which we actually had an ordinance that established this unit in this government to serve the people of Moorhead and to provide electric service and to run this utility as a business. I understand that, Bill, you've put your resignation in. I want to personally thank you for all the hard work you did during the period of time that I sat on this board, for all the work that the citizens of Moorhead do not understand that you did while you sat in that chair, whether it was here on the board of Missouri River, on national boards, on those boards that handled financing for Missouri River, which impacted us in our rate making. All of the things that you did with utmost professionalism and with the interests of this city at your heart. That is not to say you and I did not disagree over that period of time, and we can have a cup of coffee and discuss those times in the future, but I wish you well. Mr. Regala, when I served here, you were one of the few people that understand the way in which financial statements are to be read. You kept not only this board in check, but also anybody else who cared to ask questions, and I thank you for your service. I cannot say enough about the fact that it is necessary that the people sitting on this board understand their charge, understand what it is that they're supposed to do. They are not to listen to politics. This is no place for politics, and I would hope that everybody keeps politics out of the operation of this utility. With that, I see that my time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Norman.
I wish you the best, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other customers to be heard or recognitions? So I'd like to take this time now to thank Commissioner Regala for his work, to recognize him as a wonderful mentor and an exemplary commissioner in my eyes, who really taught me the importance of old business. Old business. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
With that, number 6, old business. Seeing none?
I have some old business here for it, so thank you for those comments, appreciate that. I would like to also thank the staff and employees of Moorhead Public Service for their dedication and their hard work to make MPS one of the best utilities in the area. I've struggled significantly how to address my concerns. So I chose not to call people names, and I will go with some comments and then some questions for our council representatives. It was disappointing to me that the council people from my ward chose not to speak to me at all about continuing as a commissioner. I served 5 years. I'm willing to serve. I'm able to serve, but they chose to send an email to me to dismiss me from this commission. That is very discouraging. And I'm leaning that it probably tells you a little bit about the process that was used of how this decision was made. I would like to ask a few questions of Chuck here and Deb here, if you would allow. At the December council meeting I attended, and I asked several questions here, one specifically regarding the administration line item that was $850,000 over last year's budget. I was told by the council I would get a detailed listing of all those expenses. I have not heard anything from anybody at this point, and the question is why? And I don't know if you are in a position, and Chuck, if you or anybody else would like to address that concern?
Thank you, John. I could send a request to our city manager if you're looking for that. You were looking for the line item for $850,000 in the budget.
That's what I was told was supposed to be sent out. I think Councilperson White had said that that would be done. The manager, when I asked, said, I think the response was, yeah, I think it would be appropriate that that information be sent out to whoever would like it. That's my memory. Maybe I'm wrong. But I have not seen anything of that sort. So it's just curious why. Second item, that's a concern, that since the city has taken over the EDA, we have had a director leave, we've had the budget double, and we've had expenses moved from the city budget to the EDA budget. And my concern is that going to happen at the utility as well?
I can't make that.
Okay, all right, okay. Next item would be,
I can't recall any discussions that were along those lines ever.
okay, well, I appreciate just the clarification because that is a concern that would happen to the utility going in the future. The next item, several months ago, the council gave a directive to the utility to discontinue collecting fees of city fees that's on the utility bill because of various challenges for those individuals. And at this point, there has not been given any direction of when or how those fees are to be collected in the future. Has there been any discussion about how that is going to be managed in the future?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Hendrickson can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll direct this to Mr. Schwant, but I don't think there was ever any directive from the city to change your policy. That was an MPS decision, so I guess I would have, unless you have additional information, honestly, I don't think that was ever anything that we gave as a directive. We've never voted on anything like that, so it was an MPS decision to eliminate some policies.
Well,
Or some fees, right? So MPS decided to change their fee structure, and there was discussion of it, but that's never been something that was a directive or even anything that was brought to, we were told by MPS, not that it came from the city.
Well,
Am I
That-
correct?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was never aware of it.
Yeah.
I think that's something that probably should be looked at, because when there is statements about communication here, I'm very confident of the instructions that were given by city staff based on what comments are made at council, that people who cannot afford or cannot pay their city fees, to discontinue it. There's been communication between MPS and city staff as far as what policies you will put in place to begin collecting those fees, and nothing has been done. That is the information that I have.
Yeah.
Where'd you get the information?
Well, we provide a billing service for the city.
Right.
Right.
And we've been asking questions for months, trying to get clarification on what city staff, what city council would like us to do, and we're not getting information back. I believe that's what Mr. Urgala is talking about.
But can you, is there anything that you can point to where the city told you that you had to eliminate these fees?
No,
Okay.
didn't say eliminate. I said discontinue collecting them.
Discontinue, right, so.
Yes.
And we do have some, we can point to that. That was a council meeting. So, I mean, there was council action on, the collection of fees during the wintertime.
We said that you couldn't shut power off when.
To collect fees,
Right, for
right.
low-income individuals, you couldn't shut power off in the winter because for state compliance, right?
That's,
But that's the only
That's-
time it's ever been discussed at council,
Right.
right?
We didn't talk about fees, we talked about shutting off.
Right, it was
Yeah, it was
the
the
only thing that's been to council is
disconnecting of
that.
electricity to collect city fees. Electricity or water to collect city fees.
again,
Right.
you both are talking about two different things. My statement is, I'm not talking about shutting off the electricity. I'm talking about when you had discussions regarding people who were unable or unwilling to pay their city fees, that the utility would not continue collection of those fees. We'd have a winter shut-off policy dictated by the state of what can be done, but the direction that we were given, and if our other commissioners would be here, I'm sure they could share with you that it was our understanding and the directive that we were given that you as a city staff would put together a policy as far as how to go forward, and there was discussions of payment plans or even a loan program that was available that a donor gave to the city to help these people out. But again, nothing has been done to clarify or resolve how that's going to be done. So my point would be that, again, that needs to be resolved.
And I guess we can check with staff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think finding out at a meeting, if you had sent us something in advance, we could have maybe gotten some more
Checked on it.
information, but.
Well,
we
unfortunately,
don't- Yeah,
my council people decided to remove me.
yeah,
So
I do understand
don't
that,
This is
John.
my last
Yeah.
opportunity to go on record of the concerns that I have.
Yeah, and I do understand that. If you don't mind me saying, we want to make sure that the commission gets answers to their questions, but obviously, what you're talking about, we weren't really prepared to
No.
answer that, and honestly can't recall ever the council making any directive. The only thing I can recall is our vote about the shut-off in the winter, but But we'd be happy to get more information for you.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, John. I made a note and look forward to hearing about this issue or discussing this issue in the future. City Council report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few things in the bonding bill. Governor's bonding bill came out, and Moorhead received quite a bit of money for that bonding bill. We received, well, we didn't receive the money yet, but it's in the governor's bonding bill. The 11th Street North underpass is in there. The Clay County Transfer Station. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but we need a new Clay County Transfer Station. More flood control projects, or flood control money up in the Oakport area, and then we did receive around $9 million to go towards a community and aquatic center. So that was a surprise, but that was in there. And with the council meeting, we discussed the census, and they're paying well to do the census. I think they're paying about $20 an hour. So if you're interested, it's a great part-time job, especially for college students. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other additional information? No? Okay, great. Bill? No. Public Service Commission, sorry. Any meetings? No? Okay, Bill?
Well, I figured this is my last meeting, so I'll have to take whatever opportunity I can get to say thank you to everyone. As everyone knows, or most people know, I submitted my resignation after the council meeting last Monday, and you've seen in the paper a couple of articles that tries to kind of get to the heart of the matter, and I think it's all there in those two articles. It's just there's a lot between the lines and under the surface, some of which we just talked about. The interesting thing, I think, and the discussion that we just had about, no council directive to do this or that. I tell my staff that when we basically operate as a team, and if the team, thing isn't working, then what happens is you break down into, following the hierarchy. So an employee has to go to a supervisor, who goes to their manager, who goes to someone, while the manager back down to another supervisor, that type of thing. It seems like that's what we've got here between the commission and the council. Because, what you're talking about, some of the things that we were just talking about with billing should be able to be resolved between Moorhead Public Service staff and the city staff. But for some reason, and poor Nancy Lund has been trying to get answers on the billing issue, because that seems to be a big issue at the city or their staff. So we've been working on that, and she's been asking questions after questions after questions. It's not working. We're not getting any answers. So, what I would generally instruct my employees to do at this point would be, and I think John Regala and I have had this conversation. Well, talk to the manager talk to the commission talk to the council, they talk to their city staff. You can see and go back and forth that way. That doesn't work very well. And you just saw a little bit of that, which is extremely unfortunate, because I've been here 35 years and we've been able to work together most of those years. Yeah, we have our little spats about the transfer, about other management issues, but generally we've been able to work all of those out. The transfer is going to make Moorhead Public Service electric rates uncompetitive. 15 years ago, just check the facts. 15 years ago, Moorhead electric rates were 15% below Xcel Energy. They're our benchmark because the rural electric cooperatives rates are higher. But we compete, you talk about economic development, we compete with Xcel Energy and the Fargo Industrial Park for commercial businesses which pay a lot of taxes and pay a lot of electricity rates. 15 years ago, we were 15% below XL. Now we're on par. If you look at where the transfer's gone over those years, that's the main cause of it. And over the next 15 years, and I've said this before, if you want our rates to be 15% higher than XL, then just keep doing what you've been doing. But as Moorhead grows, and I'm an engineer, I understand math. As Moorhead grows, we have a fixed allocation from Western Area Power Administration. It's fixed. We're not going to get any more. We can't get any more. No one can get any more. So all of our new power, our marginal power, is going to come from a higher source, a higher cost source of energy, Missouri River Energy Services. It's not a hard math problem. It's double the rate of Western Area Power. So if you just think about every new business that comes into Moorhead is going to push our rates up. Everyone else has to pitch in order to give the same rates to everyone new that's coming into town. Right now, over the past couple of years, we've actually been at a standstill as far as growth. But at some point, Moorhead is going to grow. We're going to run out of all the efficiency things that Dennis Eisenbraun's been working so hard on, and we're going to start growing again. And as soon as we start growing again, there's going to be tremendous upward pressure on our rates. And it's not going to be anyone's fault. It's just going to be because of growth. And what the Charter Commission needs to do, or the City Council needs to do, is to limit the growth in the percentage. Actually, they need to reduce the percentage of the transfer over time. Every single council person hates to hear that, because you know what that means? That means we've got to raise taxes. And I run the electric and water utility. I'm not that concerned about taxes, but I am being held accountable for our water and our electric rates. And if nothing is done with that percentage, and I've got plans, I've got ideas, I can give them to you. And I think it should go right in the charter myself, because I think that's the only way it's going to get done. But that 25% transfer on gross electric sales needs to go down over the next 50 years by 15%. The maximum should be 10%, just like it is for any other utility in Moorhead. 50 years is a long time. You can adjust taxes along the way, but if we don't, those electric rates are going to be 15, 20% higher than XL in Moorhead, or in XL in Fargo. And that is an issue. So all the other issues that you've heard about over the past couple of years are minor compared to the transfer. We have a great staff. We run an excellent utility. Our water tastes great. Our electricity is the most reliable in the region. And our rates are still competitive. We used to say our rates were low. Now we say our rates are competitive, because that's what they are, is competitive. So there still is work to do. It still will be a lot of good work by the commission and the council, and they do need to work together. But it is imperative that they look at the big issues and tackle them. Now, and I'm just going to read right from my resignation message. I'd like to thank the commission, the former commission members. Ken, thank you so much for speaking. That was nice. Our current commission, which is pretty small right now, Mary and John and Chris, thank you so much for your volunteer work, because it's volunteer work. You get paid $197 a month, which is really nothing. And thank you for that work. To my employees, best bunch of employees ever. Dedicated, hardworking, smart, professional. Ask them a question, they'll give you the answer. You know, I mean, they're, I say, a bunch of technical people and accountants, right? I mean, we run a tight ship. The charter says to be efficient and economical. Moorhead Public Service is not only efficient and economical, it also provides the greatest tasting water in the state of Minnesota and the metro area, and has reliable electricity, and provides some of the best renewable energy programs, other things. I mean, it's doing it all. Yeah. And I mean, I also say in my letter that I'm so honored to work beside dedicated public employees that care so much for the excellent services they provide to the community of Moorhead. My resignation letter took me, I bet I worked on that thing for the last 5 weeks. So that letter, you know, had many different versions of it. And you can read between the lines there as well, because I'm not happy about leaving. I wasn't intending to leave. It's probably not right that I'm leaving. We're going to talk about succession. It's ready to leave. The succession is in good shape. We'll talk about that later. But the statement where I say I'm so honored to work beside very dedicated public employees that care so much for the excellent services they provide to the community of Moorhead, that includes the city of Moorhead employees. Because I've worked here for a long time. I've worked with a lot of great public servants. They don't get the appreciation that they should. I mean, really at every meeting you should be thanking, you know, the public employees, you know, and with social media now, it's nasty. I saw a really nice article in the forum this week that talked about snow plowing, and that somebody's dad was a snowplow, you know, or a superintendent of public works or something, and he didn't make it to church. He didn't make it home for supper. You know, I mean, you don't know how public employees, how hard they work. And they're not appreciated like they should be. So I'd like to give appreciation to Moorhead Public Service employees and to the City of Moorhead employees. And I've had a great work-life experience. I've had great friends and colleagues here at Moorhead Public Service and the City of Moorhead. The forum ended. I did send it took me just 5 weeks to write the first letter, and then once I sent it at 8:08 on Monday night, I looked out the window toward the river, and it was all black out there, and I thought, man, I gotta write something to the employees. I didn't have anything written for the employees. It took me 12 minutes to write that one, and that's the one that got in the paper. And probably because it was real spontaneous and from the heart. But again, I said, you know, thank you for me being able to work with you. We've done many projects together, and I am going to look back with fondness at all the things that we've done. Everything from sludge to generators to tearing down old power plants and all these things. Energy programs Dennis and I worked on. We always sat, when it was Dennis or Chris or Kevin, said, what's the next thing that the citizens of Moorhead expect from us? Because we need to be ahead of the game. And we were first with renewable wind. We were first with solar, community solar. Now we're the first to allow people to, in the metro area anyway, to have all of their energy either carbon-free or green. And if you want to know what the difference between carbon-free and green is, you can talk to me afterwards. But I did say at the end, and this was kind of funny in the letter, because Barry Amundsen said, and the last thing he said was simply, I love you. And that's what I was thinking about when I looked out the window there. And I love a lot of the people in this building and out there by Highway 75 and Highway 10. And I'm proud to have worked here. I'm proud of all the friendships I've made, and I will miss it, and I will go on and do something wonderful, I guess, whatever God has in store for me. So I'm fine. I'll do fine. But I do appreciate all of you and all the hard work that you do. Public water and public power is, we brag about it being locally controlled, locally owned and locally controlled. Well, this is locally controlled, and you've got a big responsibility with that. So I'll be praying for you, and again, I just thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And you need to know that I very much appreciate the work that you've done, and I've known you only a very short time, and I have learned so much from you about utility as well as the sort of the guiding principles of Moorhead Public Service. So I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Bill, I would also like to thank you for years of service to the city of Moorhead, and a thank you for the shout out and props to the city and public employees. Moorhead's very fortunate all the way through, from the top to the bottom. Thank you.
Chuck?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Me too, Bill. Thanks for your service. Was on here for about 4 years and then just got reinstated. So appreciate your service. Appreciate your service to the city. And like Mary said, appreciate the shout out to the snowplow operators and the city works people, because they work hard and they've been working around the clock with this last storm. So, but again, thanks for your service to the city.
Moving on to our next item, number 8. Consider actions related to the general manager position. In front of you should be a document on succession planning provided for us for the meeting.
Would you like me to speak to that?
Bill, if you would walk us through that, that would be fine. I appreciate that.
This time they're going to start the 3-minute timer.
You're starting the 3-minute timer?
No, don't. No. If you take a look at policy number 39, this is an administrative policy, so it's not a commission policy that was approved by the commission. Probably could just as well have been. It's pretty basic. It's basically talking about a succession plan or some different succession options. If either the general manager or a division manager leaves. And we generally have 3 divisions, water, electric, and administration and finance. So the policy goes through both of those. There's A, B, C, and D, which I'm going to be talking about. And so you can somewhat follow along from this policy, this document. The first letter A is to appoint an interim position, interim general manager position or an interim division manager position, but we're talking about general manager here. Simply, what we're recommending in the policy is appoint one of the division managers, give them a 10% premium over their current salary, and go start looking for another general manager, which is B. So A is appoint an interim. B is begin a national or regional search with or without a reputable search firm. Back 27 years ago, they used Mykoff and Associates. Mykoff and Associates is still there. That's why I listed them, but there's many recruiting firms out there that you could use. The search firm will request a current job description, which is up to date in 2017, and they will interview the commission to determine the goals of the utility. So really, that's going to be an important step in this process, is to interview the commission. The person will come in and basically interview you and say, okay, where do you want to go? Now that you've got an opportunity here without a general manager, which direction would you like to go? And that's really a big part of it. So I can't tell you a whole lot of what I think you should do because you're going to have to answer that moving forward. Operationally, you're in pretty good shape. And then it says part B2 is for division managers, so you don't have to really look at that. C, letter C, backup plan for interim positions. If you don't feel like you should do a interim general manager position from the division managers, then there are other options. And it just says a backup plan may be to hire an interim from American Public Power Association. They do that. In fact, I just heard the previous Rochester Public Utilities general manager is serving in that role in another Minnesota city. So that's part C. That's an option as well. And then D really is a discussion about the preparation of internal successors to the general manager and the division manager positions. And we have been doing that. I think we're pretty well prepared for succession. Operationally, I don't think there's going to be a problem. Former Commissioner Helen Frampton once said, you won't really notice the absence of the chief executive officer or a division manager for about a year. And then you're going to figure out some of the things that person was doing that maybe you didn't think of. And there's probably a few of those areas. I serve on a number of those boards that Ken was talking about. And, there will be an absence there. Moorhead participating in that. And that is something to think about, talk about. So with that, I can answer other questions you may have about any of the details as much as I can give you without knowing the grand plan that the new commission's going to have.
Questions?
Just clarification, is it at this time that you're recommending to the commission that they should appoint a interim manager? Or should that be waited for the next commission to be complete?
If they were ready to do that, I mean, I certainly I could give you some direction in that because we have kind of polled our staff to see who would actually be interested in doing that. And so if you want names, I can give you names, but I also don't want to give a name and then jinx them or whatever, because you may not take my selection, but you have good division managers that can fill an interim role.
Is it the case that we no longer have a standing HR committee?
We don't have a standing HR committee, no.
Okay, I see that as the number one thing to do, is to appoint an HR committee from within the commission.
And if you want those to be in like non-open meeting law, then you should have an end date.
Okay.
It should be, you have to give them a charge and you can appoint whoever. Well, you can appoint two.
So an ad hoc committee.
And then just put an end date on it so that you don't have to open those to the public.
Right.
Well, Chris, I'm thinking it's you and me since this is John's last meeting.
I think so as well. I would, do we need to make a motion to do that?
Sure.
Chuck?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does the HR board have to be appointed right away, or would you want inputs? And I trust you too. I mean, don't get me wrong, but with the new interim director is going to be working with the new board. I mean, would you want to wait for the new board or just want to vote on it now?
I think we do need to make some decision for an ad hoc interim situation before the new board comes on in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Bill, I'm sorry. Please refresh my memory. You're officially done when?
Monday, January 27th.
Thank you.
But I'm still in town.
You're still
She's still in
okay.
town.
And I mean, I will be available. So I mean, if there's big questions, just give me a call.
Thank you.
No.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think we do need
I do
to
too.
make a plan.
I do too. I think that we should, if you would make a motion or something, somebody would make a motion to set up an ad hoc committee appointing two commissioners, which is very awkward right now. I'm not saying this is not easy.
We can say we had full board participation. is
Yes.
what we- Yeah.
And with the sole purpose of finding a replacement for the general manager with a sunset deadline of June 1st.
Is that a motion?
Can I make a motion? Is it allowed?
Where's our parliamentarian?
I think I can.
I do not know if you
think I
can or
can.
not.
I think I can. And I just did, so.
John, do you want a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have
Okay,
one
so-
more clarification.
Yes.
Bill, it's my understanding that once a new general manager is selected, does that individual have to be approved by any state agencies, or, because it's I thought there was my understanding that there might have some further approval as far as who that general manager is. Do you aware of anything like that?
No, I mean, the commission has all those powers that's in chapters 11 and 12 that Ken was talking about. And one of those powers, they do have to appoint a chief administrative officer, is what it says. But there's no other approvals. You might be thinking about like a professional engineering designation or that type of thing, which is a state thing. But yeah, I mean, that's aside from the selection of the general manager.
I would,
And
I would
it's
encourage
preferred.
you or John to just research that, because that's been my understanding from previous commissioners, that there may have to be additional sign-off somewhere along the line.
Great. Thank you for your input, Bill, walking us through that document. Item number 9, approve the amended agreement with Ames Construction for the transmission line relocation service. Travis gave us a new handout with the revisions. That where? Travis?
Travis Schmidt, Electrical Engineering Manager. We brought this item to you back in early December of 2019 to have an agreement put together with Ames Construction on the 2020 First Street grade separation project with reference to the 115 kV transmission line that is currently in question on how we're going to handle that. Once we approved that agreement, once the commission approved that agreement, we had some conversations with Ames Construction. Then along with that, we did have some conversations with city engineers and SRF engineering as well, trying to handle the whole process in itself as well too. And Chris is going to speak to the water side in just a little bit. At that point in time, we were looking at 2 structures that were being dealt with. After those conversations have happened, we've basically, we're simplifying it down to the Structure 9 issue at hand. Structure 9 issue at hand is basically what's happened is because of the slope stability issue on site, our new structure that we just put in last year is sloughing away to the southwest about 2.5 feet, and it's actually dropped in elevation about 18 inches. What we're doing, what I'm asking for tonight is approval to adjust that agreement so that it just incorporates the dealings with Structure 9 in the permanent location. It doesn't deal with the temporary location or Structure 12 either, which was in the previous agreement. And it's all contingent upon final legal approval. John has been working on getting this agreement up to date as much as we can. A lot of these meetings actually occurred last week.
questions?
So at this point, we're looking for a motion to approve.
Yep.
Approve this.
Approve this agreement.
So moved. I would move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none? Yes, we've got agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, item number 10, temporary relocation of water lines associated with the City of Moorhead's 21st Street grade separation project. Chris?
Chris Knutson, Water Division Manager. Again, this is related to the City of Moorhead's 2021 grade separation project. We have 2 water lines that are in the construction area that have been impacted by the construction of this project. The relocation of those lines was completed in November of 2018, so the lines were relocated to what was thought to be their permanent location. On October 29th of this year, there was a slope failure. That's the same slope failure that impacted some of Travis's transmission lines. That also impacted both our finished water line and our Red River supply line. At the December 17th, 2019 meeting, we brought to the commission a draft agreement on the relocation of those water lines, and the draft agreement would have been between Ames Construction and Moorhead Public Service. We've been working with Ames and the city to find an agreement that's suitable for everyone, and it appears at this time that Ames and the city would like to have the contents of the agreement reflected in a change order between the city and Ames. So MPS has a lot of guidance in terms of the timeline of those relocation processes. Because it's the Red River supply line, it provides for essentially, up to 7 million gallons per day of supply for us. So we have a very significant interest in how long that line is off. So what we're asking basically is, what we're notifying is that we're not going to work with Ames on an agreement, but the contents of that draft agreement will be reflected in a change order that the city is working with Ames on. And so MPS shouldn't have any cost associated with this action. The city's still working out the cost implications between the city and Ames. We just want to define some of the timelines and critical aspects of construction as we were very involved in the original specifications for the project.
Questions? Seeing none, ready for a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Seeing no objection. There's no need to close the meeting for executive session today. Notice the upcoming Public Service Commission meetings, February 4th. We will meet. That will be the first time that we'll have a chance to see who we'll be working with. February 18th is the next Public Service Commission meeting. After that, there's opportunities for professional development for commissioners. And I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well,
Yes? Hi, Deb.
Could I just say one short?
Yes, you may.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I had my hand up when we were on item 8, but I'm short, so I actually just wanted to make a recommendation when we were talking about the succession plan. I was thinking about it the other day, just ways that the employees could have a voice in that too, and I know just from talking to some folks too that obviously this is stressful and people are concerned, and I know I don't know what the process has been used in the past. I was thinking at my other job at the university, when we have a high level hire like this, we have representation from the different bargaining units, and I know we do have union representation. I don't know if there would be an opportunity to just make sure that they are fully engaged in that, and actually one of the things I was going to recommend is that if there was an opportunity for the commission to meet with some of those employees, maybe the unions could organize that, just to let people know that, you know, there's some work we're getting through this, but, you know, we really value their work and want to make sure that we can put them at ease a bit. That was all.
Okay, thank you for your
Thanks.
input. So we have a motion to adjourn that's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you for coming.